everyone. I now request you all to stand for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you. You may all take your seats, please. Good evening, everyone. My name is Salil Jaikar, Deputy Director of Marketing and Communications for SPJIMR. And it is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be your host this evening. I now invite Mr. Deepak Parekh, Chair of the SPJIMR Governing Council, to declare the convocation open.
I declare the convocation 2025 open. Thank you.
कुन्देन्दु तुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रभृतिभिः देवै सदा पूजिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेषजाड्यापहा.
Thank you, Soumya. I now invite Mr. Parekh to come to the podium to address the gathering and also to introduce our chief guest, Mr. Nitin Paranjpe. Sir.
Good evening. First, let me welcome our chief guest and convocation speaker today, Mr. Nitin Paranjpe. He is our keynote speaker, as you all know, this evening. So, chief guest, Mr. Paranjpe, our Dean Varun Nagaraj, members of the faculty, parents, and dear students. Mr. Paranjpe is presently the non-executive chairman of Hindustan Unilever. Over his long career of over 3 decades, he has performed many important roles in India as well as globally. He was the CEO of Hindustan Unilever India from 2008 to 2013, before joining Unilever's global executive leadership team, where he performed various roles, including being the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, the CTO, the Chief Transformation Officer, and the CPO, the Chief People's Officer for Unilever globally. He's also presently on the board of independent director on the board of Infosys as well as Heineken and Indian School of Business. Just a bit of personal, I have known Nitin for many, many years, maybe 3 decades, when he was a young man and a young officer, young manager at Hindustan Lever, we used to call it that time, when I was on the board and he was coming to our board meetings and making presentations to us. He was a very young man. He still looks young. And seeing him and seeing his work, we all knew that he would go places in Unilever. His intelligence, his humility, his ability to get on with people was by far the best. And he did not disappoint us by having so many global jobs during his career. For me, it's a pleasure introducing him because during my stint, he was at Hindustan Lever. And when I retired from Hindustan Lever, he hosted a lovely party in my farewell at his home in Bombay. I don't know if he still remembers it, but I remember it very clearly. So Nitin, thank you very much for agreeing to come. It's a pleasure to have you here and wish you all the best.
Good evening, SPJIMR. Welcome. Let's get the party started. All right. Now, how do you compete with some impossible to compete with people? I mean, think about what we had to do today. This morning, we had to compete with the rain gods, and I'm happy to say we won, right? This afternoon, we had to compete with, or we are competing with Guns N' Roses. And for those of you that know my propensity for that kind of music, I was almost inclined to start our procession with Welcome to the Jungle. But on the other hand, I figured it might be a bit undignified for a convocation ceremony. So you'll have to do with the regular setup. So in terms of welcomes, first of all, welcome, Deepak. Deepak Parekh has been an unwavering, steady hand that has guided SPJIMR for years and years, including during my tenure. So thank you very much, Deepak, for being there for us anytime. Also, thank you to Mr. Nitin Paranjpe. I had the opportunity to listen to Nitin speak about 6 months ago or 9 months ago at a book reading. And given that I love Unilever and Pullman and everything that they stand for, and given how charming Nitin was, it was a no-brainer for us to invite Nitin over to come and join us today. So welcome, welcome, Nitin. So now, welcome to the convocating graduates from 8 programs today. And I will go through each of these programs and then welcome you collectively at the end. We have 802 convocating graduates today, of which nearly 750 are in attendance. This is your day, guys, so let's go. We'll begin with our PhD students or FPM scholars. We are convocating 2 FPM scholars or PhD scholars today. That program was started in 2016. Our oldest flagship program, PGDM, started in 1981. It used to be called MMS at one point. Is convocating 232 graduates today. So 1981, this is our oldest program. Right. Feel free to outdo each other in terms of cheering, by the way, and it'll actually take something to overcome 232 people, but I'm sure the rest of the groups can do it. The PGEMP program, our executive management program, which started in 2002, is convocating 185 graduates today. Sorry, PGDM, you don't get a makeover exam on this one. Right? The PGPM batch, which started in 2005, 164 graduates today. Welcome. The PGPDM, small but mighty, where are you? All right. 2011, we began to train managers for the public and the social sector, and 34 of them are convocating today. The PGPGM program, our program that runs both in Mumbai and Delhi, 51 convocating graduates today in a program that started in 2018. the PGPMBM, our smallest program, started 2022, convocating 21 graduates today. Okay. And then our PGDM, Division D&E, if you will. Welcome, welcome. All right. Now, now, there are other people we need to welcome, of course. This is your day, no question. But remember, you wouldn't be here without several other folks that helped you along the way. So I'd like to actually now welcome all the family and friends who are here today. And this one I actually have a special corner for, especially this year. I'm a parent, as are many of us, and I know what pride parents feel when their children graduate. My daughter graduated from medical school 10 days ago, and I can tell you I was probably more proud of her than she was of herself. So from parent to parent, dear parents, welcome. Thank you for being here. All right. Now, the other group you wouldn't be here without are really our lovely faculty and professional staff. So my dear friends, my dear faculty members, welcome, and please, I would appreciate it if everybody could stand up and give our faculty and professional staff your heartfelt gratitude. Thank you. Now, on this special day, it's perfectly fine to feel a little proud of yourself. Pride in general is not a good thing. But we're human. I think we're allowed to feel good, maybe even feel proud. Not arrogant, but feel proud about certain things. And today is certainly one of those days where all 802 of you should feel and take an immense sense of pride in what you have accomplished during your stay here at SPJIMR. Now, in addition to taking pride in yourselves, I think you should take pride in the institution that has created you as well. And so just as today is a day for you to feel proud of yourself, this is also a day to feel proud of the Institute. So allow me a few minutes, if you will, to recap the accomplishments of SPJIMR over the last year, all of which contribute to making SPJIMR an even better place than it was as you started your programs here. So let's just look back 1 year very, very quickly. Our FPM program was accredited as a PhD equivalent program this year after a 6-year stint, after a 6-year journey to make it so. Triple Crown, baby. All right, one of only 4 schools in India that have accomplished this particular feat. We accomplished that this year when we closed on our EQUIS accreditation. Need I say more? That's our FT ranking over there. Now, mind you, rankings come and go, and we shouldn't feel too proud of it, but what the hell? If it says number 1, let's take it. And there were a whole bunch of other rankings, where we generally finished in the top 5 or top 6 and so forth. So I'll just flip through all of these, all of which simply says that you are proud alumni or soon to be proud alumni of a great institution that is recognized everywhere within India and increasingly in different parts of the globe that care about the kinds of things that we care about. Now, in addition, we did extremely well on a whole bunch of other things. It is remarkable that across all of the business schools in India, every IIM, ISB, and so forth, our faculty members and spokespeople were the #1 quoted business school faculty in the country. We were in the top 10 in terms of media and social media marketing. That number will only go up. In terms of the research output of our faculty, a remarkable increase in the research that our faculty does. As you know, besides being wonderful teachers, our faculty members are wonderful researchers too. And this is a measure of the high-quality research that the Institute has been putting out over the last 3 years. And as you all know as business school students, up and to the right is generally a good thing. In terms of case leadership, I think many of you already know that some of our faculty, in fact, most of our faculty are wonderful case instructors and case writers too. Take a look at the number of downloads that SPJIMR authored cases have had around the world. 324,000 downloads of SPJIMR written cases around the world, including 3 cases that feature in the top 25 cases of all time, all right? 5 books authored by our faculty members this year, Faculty development workshops where our faculty try and raise the game of other faculty members around the country. As a top-tier school, it is part of our responsibility to make sure that the overall standard of business education in India goes up, and this is basically what we do it through faculty development workshops. The Management Practices Insights magazine, which all of you as alumni should subscribe to and read as a way of staying in touch with your alma mater and having small snippets of good knowledge come your way, has gone from strength to strength with more than 30 or so essays collectively, including the current issues, large numbers of downloads, large numbers of views, and so on. So all of these are examples of your faculty members sharing their knowledge, sharing their best practices, and sharing their expertise with communities even outside of the student community. We had our first conference called TASIC, Technology and Societal Impact. The C stands for the conference. And the 2025 event was a great success. This is the start of something that is going to be a flagship event in South Asia. We are aiming to be the preeminent venue for discussions around the intersection between technology and society. And this year's conference, which was spectacular, and I hope many of you had a chance to attend it, featured academic tracks, practitioner tracks, a workshop on what DPI would mean to India, and so on. This property of ours will go from strength to strength in coming years. Now, a little bit bragging about the programs, and these are the facts others might not know. In the PGDM program, our international exchange footprint expanded from about 20-something to 100 plus this year. So that was a phenomenal growth because it allowed nearly a third of our students to essentially go abroad and study in an exchange program. The St. Gallen Symposium, which is a hallmark of student excellence, 15 of the top 100 students in the St. Gallen's Winners Gallery were SPJIMR students from PGDM and PGPM. All good? On campus that basically value what it is we put out here at SPJIMR. We have more than 200 recruiters come to campus with names that are okay, I think. And these recruiters recognize that they have something special with SPJIMR folks. Now, in terms of our modular programs, so these are programs like the PGEMP, the executive program, and so on. This was a proud year for the EMP program. This was the 100th batch of the PGEMP program. Just think about it, guys. That's more number of batches than all the PGDM batches put together, right? PGDM started in 1981, once a year. Do the math, 40, 43, something like that. 100 different batches of PGEMP, because we do multiple cohorts a year, have walked through these gates, gone back to the company, contributed immensely. That was a really proud, shining moment for us. There's not a single institution in India that can claim they have done 100 of any one thing. And this is really the first of those. On the PGPDM group, our small but mighty managers who will make the social sector contribute at an even higher level. We expanded the scholarship support we had for the PGPDM program, and this then allows us to take this from a group size of maybe 40 or 50 to nearly 100. So soon, in a year or 2 years' time, we will be welcoming 100 PGPDM graduates here every year. We stayed engaged with the community. For those of you that were watching, Abhyuday expanded or inaugurated its center. We launched a program called Sashakt through a combination of CFB and Abhyuday, where we actually took ex-sitaras, 7 ex-sitaras, and took them through a 3-month entrepreneurship bootstrapping program. And we are now supporting them as they take their businesses from individual single employer businesses or single employee businesses to becoming employers. This is what your Abhyuday contribution has the potential to do. This represents the work done by PGDM students and the Abhyuday group from years and years ago. So these are folks in their young 20s who are now creating companies in and around this particular area. And then we also engage more broadly with the community. Inside of the Wise Tech Accelerator, so in terms of our contribution to the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, these were all the startups that we incubated. So these were startups that stayed with us for 3 to 4 months. These were the investors we brought in. They raised $6 million between all of them during the course of their stay with us. So not only did we engage with the local community, we engaged basically with the startup and the entrepreneurial community in a manner that is systematic and that can be sustained. And on the infrastructure side, the building on the left, at least most of you got to use it for a few months. I'm glad we commissioned our rec center, and I hope that it was of some value to at least some of you who had an opportunity to use the rec center. For those of you who complained about TCS Ion, I'm just happy to tell you we are transitioning over to Salesforce. This unfortunately will not be a benefit that you get. This will be a benefit that future generations of students who are sitting here will get. This then sort of represents the kinds of things we did. So busy year, all of this basically in 1 year, all right? So 24, 25, good year for us. Now, it's time to basically look forward. Now, as your dean, I'm supposed to give you some words of advice, but I've become a little cynical about this, so I'm going to try a shortcut method, which many of you would understand, of course, right? So here's basically what we're going to do. We'll look at sort of the changes that are facing us, and then I thought, right, should I give you 3 things to do? And I actually ran a small test. You know, every year I suggest 2 things or 3 things, and then a month later I reach out to one of the students and say, hey, what did I say? Hey, they have no idea. So I figured, why take the time to come up with 2 or 3 unique things for you, since nobody would remember it anyway? So let me just lay out sort of the world you're walking into, and then I'm going to point you to something you've seen for 2 years or 1 year or however long your program was around campus, and have you interpret that thing that you've seen for so long in the context of your individual next steps. All right, the world you're walking out to outside SPJIMR is not a necessarily easy and pleasant place all the time. You're walking into a world full of geopolitical challenges. You're walking into a world that might be on the brink of geological extinction or climate crisis of the kinds that we have not seen before. You're walking into a world where AI represents both promise and peril. And those are only 3 of the 5 or 6 things I could have come up with to let you know that you're not walking into a hunky-dory, peachy kind of world at all. So what is it that you should draw upon? How do you walk into this world and confront this kind of uncertainty with the confidence that I know that you have? And so I want to tell you what we do at SPJIMR, because the same trends that you are being confronted with as individuals confront us as an organization. Where do we look to figure out what it is that we need to do in order to deal with the changes that are coming ahead? We look at our mission. We look at our mission and say, regardless of the changes that are happening, or maybe because of the changes that are happening, these are the things that guide our organization. These are the things that guide SPJIMR. This is our mission statement, which you have seen on multiple boards around campus. But I want you to look at it not as students of SPJIMR. I want you to look at this and say, as individuals who are leaving SPJIMR, are there elements or key phrases in here that could potentially guide you as you confront uncertainty? And I just want to point you to 3 things. I want to point you to the phrase value-based growth. What does growth mean? Growth means that tomorrow you're a different person and hopefully a better person than you are today. Growth comes from a growth mindset. It is accepting that what you are today is not the finished product. It is a work in process towards something much better, much greater. That really is what growth is. So do not leave SPJIMR with the feeling that you're a finished product. You're not. You and us and all of us are just works in process. And if you lose sight of that, you will stop growing. And if you stop growing, I don't believe you will be able to confront and deal with the world around us. So growth is an imperative. But what kind of growth, one could ask? What does value-based growth mean? To me, I would interpret it as saying at an individual level that this is growth not just for me for personal selfish reasons, that this is growth that benefits others as well. That every day I would look at this and say, I'm trying to be smarter. Every day I'm trying to be more knowledgeable. Every day I'm trying to be kinder. Every day I'm trying to be more compassionate. Every day I'm trying to be a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better colleague, a better dean. That's the way I would look at what value-based means. How do I increase the value on dimensions that matter? And that's what you need to ask yourselves. If I intend to grow, if every morning I wake up and I'm able to say this is one thing or one way in which I'm different today than I was yesterday, what would I want that to be from day to day? So value-based growth is something that I would like you guys to focus on. And if you ever forget what I said, you just need to go back to our website and take a look at our mission statement, right? So that's your cheat sheet for you. The second thing I'd like you to look at is the phrase, wise innovation. And of course, having spoken to most of you about this topic, you knew that you're not going to get away from SPJIMR without at least one more foray into this particular area. Why is innovation important? It is precisely because the world you're going into has no ready-made answers. It is precisely because the world you're going into will not be solved by ChatGPT telling you what to do. Innovation is going to require you to be creative. It's going to require you to work harder than you've ever worked before. So for those of you who are thinking you're moving to a space that is going to be less hard work than SPJIMR, I would say that might not be a good assumption to make. Got to work harder. You've got to stay more curious. And then perhaps you might be able to innovate new ways of dealing with challenges that frankly are going to be new to all of us. And I hope you do it in a wise manner, meaning you do it in a way that is not just arrogant, but one that recognizes that knowledge can come from anywhere, one where you're continuously learning, one where your actions are guided by compassion, and finally, one where you act. You don't just sit and talk. So if wise innovation and value-based growth are the two things you take away from this talk, with a convenient cheat sheet that is always available to you on www.spjimr.org, I hope that this will then guide you as you go forward. So once again, as we wrap up this section, welcome, your day. Let's have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Nagraj, for that inspiring message. I now invite Dr. Janaki Raman Murthy, Associate Dean of Academics and Research, to invite the FPM scholars on stage, and Professor Bikramjit Ray Chaudhary to hand over the certificates.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to announce scholars who have completed all the requirements and successfully qualified for receiving the title Fellow of Bhavan's SP Jain Institute of Management and Research. I request the graduating scholars of the Fellow Program in Management to please rise. Each scholar will now come on stage as I announce their names. Mr. Supratim Kundu from marketing area. His thesis title is An Exploration into the Dynamic Decision Making in Product Diversification. Congratulations, Dr. Supratim. Ms. Alka Agarwal from the information management area. Her thesis is on essays on examining the grassrootization of digital platforms. Congratulations, Dr. Alka. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this significant occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professors Murthy and Professor Chaudhary. I now invite our chief guest, Mr. Nitin Paranjpe, to award the gold medals and the certificates to the awardees of all the programs. Awardees, please remember to pose twice, once with your gold medal and once with your certificate. From PGDM, Sajag Agarwal, joint first rank. Soumya Mathur, joint first rank. Anand Chaudhary, third rank. From PGPM, Shubham Gupta, first rank. Binaka Girisha, second rank. From PGDM-BM, Chandramouli Sarkar, first rank. Pragya Murarka, joint second rank. Sai Priya Charan Moovwala, joint second rank. From PGEMP batch 88, Aditya Gupta, first rank. PGEMP batch 89, Sparshit RS, first rank. PGEMP batch 90, Gajera Trushant Praveen Kumar, first rank. PGEMP batch 91, Venkatesh Pundru. PGEMP batch 92, Sarbarta Chaudhary, first rank. PGPDM batch 23, Neha Yadav, first rank. PGPGM batch 6, Pratik Jain, first rank. PGPMBM batch 1, Kanishka Saraf, first rank. And with that, we come to the end of our gold medal awardees. Thank you, Mr. Paranjpe. I now invite Dean Nagaraj to present the awardees of the Dean's Honors List for the full-time programs and the modular programs. I will now call out the names of the awardees, program-wise and roll number-wise. From PGDM, Anurag Thakkar. Bhavya Nag, Dhruv Srivastav. Can we get some applause for the awardees, please? Kshitij Kumar, Madhav Ajmera, Niharika. Let's keep the applause going. There's a long list. Saurav Agrawal, Akshat Agarwal, Gagandeep Kumar Garg, Radhika Sarda, Raj Mayur Chedda, Venkatesh Govardhanan, Aditya Uday Manolkar, Ankur Chopra, Parth Hari Singhania, Ronak Adak, Saurav Kumar Sarangi, and Utkarsh Agarwal. Now from the PGPM program, Ankit Jala, Adnan Bari, Ankit Ghosh, Chirag Vadra, Rajat Agrawal, Sagnik Chakraborty, Kartik Jeevan Uttara Kavatam, and Vama Sethia. Now from PGDM-BM, Shridev Etake Pravan, Mohammad Umair Niaz Modak, Yash Niranjan Vadhavkar, Aryan Khurana, Pranav Kulkarni, and Purva Bansal. And now from the PGEMP program, Batch 88, Rizwan Khan, Anand S, Batch 89, Rasika Govind Joshi, Khalil Ur Rahman, Batch 90, Anvita Gondyala, and Kushwaha Rahul Bhagwan Singh. Batch 91, Arka De. Gaurav Gupta. PGEMP Batch 92, Sumit Diani. And Firoz Richdiwala. Now from PGPDM Batch 23, Hemlata Bhatt. And Nikhil Gajanan Ambekar. From PGPGM Batch 6, Amardeep Singh. And Shilpak Karedi. And finally, from the PGPMBM Batch 3, Vineet Bajpai. Congratulations to all the awardees of the Dean's Honor List. I now request Mr. Paranjpe, Mr. Parekh, and Dean Nagraj to kindly step down and take their seats along with our faculty in Block C. We will now present the postgraduate diplomas to the graduating class of all the 7 programs. May I now request the following faculty members from the program leadership teams to kindly come on stage to hand over the certificates. From the PGPGM, from PGPM program, Professor Anshul Verma, at your designated position next to me. Professor Rupal Walia Sharma from the PGPGM program at the center, and Professor Shabbir Hussain from the PGEMP program at your designated position at the far end of the stage. May I also request that once Professor Rupal finishes with her cohort, Professor Subir Rao to immediately come on stage and hand over the certificates to the PGPMBM graduates. Your program SPOC will guide you accordingly. Similarly, once Professor Subir finishes, may I request Professor Tanoj Kumar Meshram to please come on stage and hand over the certificates to the PGPDM graduates. Your program SPOC will also guide you accordingly. We will now begin with the distribution of the certificates to all the graduating students. Graduates, please take your positions along the stage. No. Professor Ashita Agarwal will now hand over the certificates to the graduating cohort of the PGDM class. I also invite Professor Sajid Matthews and Professor Ajinkya Naware to hand over the certificates to the PGDM/BM graduates as well. Congratulations to all the graduates. May I request everyone to please be seated. Graduates, please return to your seats. Request family and friends also to be please seated. May I request family members to please come back to your seats. We cannot continue with the convocation process unless everyone is seated. I now invite our chief guest, Mr. Nitin Paranjpe, to please address the graduates and the audience and to deliver the convocation address. Mr. Paranjpe.
Thank you. Mr. Deepak Parekh, the chairman of the board, Dean Varun Nagraj, the very distinguished faculty that I see here, but most importantly, the many, many proud parents that are around here, and most of the 802 graduates who've been convocated here today. I have to say, while it's a privilege for me, but I'll come to that a little later, it does feel like a cruel joke on all of you that at a time when many of you would be looking forward to, you finished what you were waiting here for, you've got your convocation, you might be looking forward to getting on with the things that you have on your mind, and you have me to listen to for the next 10 or 15 minutes. But from my perspective, I have to say it's been a unique privilege. A privilege to be here on what is a very special day in your lives. A day that marks the culmination of all the hard work that you've been putting in. A day that many of you would have been looking forward to over the last many months and years, waiting to go out in the real world. A day that is an outcome of the many sacrifices and the unwavering support of your parents and your teachers, and of course, the dedication of so many of your teachers and faculty members out here. I congratulate each one of you, the class of 2025 from this institute. Now, as I started preparing for this address and thinking about what I might want to say here, many thoughts went through my mind. But this time around, I did not make the mistake which I've made in the past. The mistake of imagining that I could stand here, the grand ideas that I've had in the past, where I could stand here and say something that some of you would find inspiring, thought-provoking, and maybe even potentially transformational and life-changing for you. And the reason I came to that conclusion is I just reminded myself of me 35 or 37 years ago when I was a student like you. There were so many remarkable people who were invited, so many people who came across and shared their wisdom. But I'm almost embarrassed to say that I barely remember who these people were, let alone remember the substance of what they had to share. Given all of that, there is really no reason why I won't suffer the same fate. And therefore, today I stand here with much more modest expectations and aspirations. I have no desire. I have no expectation of sharing with you anything that could be remotely life-changing, transformational, or even memorable. But I would want to do one thing. I would want to share with you a few thoughts, a few ideas, you might call them a few lessons that I've learned over the last many years. They made a difference to me, and maybe some of those might resonate with you. Now, 38 years ago, I was like one of you. I was graduating. My heart was full of hope and optimism. But I have to admit, I was graduating with a relatively limited perspective of the world and fairly modest aspirations. The mere fact that I got selected in Hindustan Lever, as it was called at that point in time, felt like a dream come true. So limited were my expectations, my aspirations at that moment. That over the last so many years have managed to grow, says more about the Institute, its beliefs, its philosophy towards leadership development, and to the many mentors and well-wishers that I had the good fortune of having encountered. People who had more belief and faith in me and my abilities than I had in myself. Through them and from them, and over the last 3 decades, there were many things that I learned. I thought of sharing 3 of those lessons with you. First, as all of you look to embark on this new phase of your life, you're likely to be filled with a multitude of emotions. For sure, there would be the excitement, the optimism, the sense of adventure as you step out into this world. And that's legitimate. But equally, some, if not all of you, would also have a set of concerns, some questions, some anxiety. Anxiety and questions around the choices that you're making. Should you take up a job? Should you set up something of your own? What sort of job is the right one for you? Which company? How should your career be? What will give you the sense of fulfillment that you're looking for? These are all valid questions. These are questions which require thoughtful consideration. But I must say that there is at least one thing which is probably as important, or if not more important than these questions, and that is the mindset and attitude you bring to whatever you choose to do. Let me explain. You know, many, many years ago, there was a good friend of mine who said to me that the best job in the world was the job he was doing then. I must admit, I didn't entirely understand the full meaning of what he said. Much later, I began to understand the profound wisdom of that one simple statement. Because in that statement, what he was really saying is that there is nothing like an inherently good job or a bad job. The real difference is the mindset and the perspective that you bring, and that is what shapes your experience, and that is what results in the outcomes that you get from the job which you do. And that's why I've always felt that blessed are the guys and girls who find joy and love whatever they choose to do, because this is a prerequisite for excellence. Over the last many years, I've had many opportunities to see this played out in real life and see the transformative effects of such a mindset on people and the impact that they have on what they do. Now, the second thought that I want to share with you relates to a piece of advice that I'd heard, likely that many of you have heard over the years. And that is to aim high and aspire to be the best in the world at whatever you choose to do. Now, I have nothing against aiming high. In fact, I subscribe to the notion of aiming high. But somehow, the idea of trying to be the best in the world didn't entirely resonate with me. Because in a bizarre sort of way, It meant that my success was not just a function of what I did and how good I was, it was also a function of how good everyone else was. Yeah. And in a world with about 7 billion people, the likelihood that someone will be better than you in whatever you choose had to be very, very high. So why even try? Till much later, I heard of a subtle but a very significant variation of this, which was to try and be the best version that you can be. Try and be the best that you can be. Now for some, this might feel like an escape route. This might feel like a cop-out, taking the easy option. But somehow I didn't feel like that. Somehow this resonated with me deeply. And I'll tell you why I didn't feel like that. Because for the first time in this articulation, it became clear. I found it liberating, I found it empowering, because it was entirely up to me, not to anybody else. And nobody in the world could take away my right to try and be a little better every single day. It was entirely up to me. And bizarre as it sounds, considering the almost unlimited potential that each one of us has, this is anything but an escape or a cop-out. This requires a mindset which is very, very uncommon, a mindset which requires you to commit to a lifelong journey of continuous improvement, wanting every single day to be a little better than the previous day. That's the mindset which you need. And ironically, many years later, I came to the realization that it is only this mindset of trying to be the best version of yourself and embracing the desire to be a little better every single day. It is only this mindset that gives you at least a chance, a small chance, but a chance of probably being the best in the world at something. And that is really something that stayed with me at that time. And if I had to leave behind with you a third thought, the third thought is based on what I would call a deep human insight. An insight which recognizes that each one of us, every individual, is universal search for meaning, universal search for purpose. We all yearn for something that drives us, something that gives us meaning, meaning in life, meaning at work, meaning in our relationships. It's not easy, but that's what we look forward to, that meaning, that purpose. Now, purpose sounds like a very lofty word, but it doesn't have to be. Purpose is simply what gives you that passion, which inspires you to, compels you to get up every morning, inspires you to work hard and give your best every single day. That's what purpose is. Nothing more, nothing less. The question is, what is that purpose for you? It's not an easy question to answer, but it is a question that you must keep asking yourself every single day. And when you do find what that purpose is, what gives you that energy, what gives you that passion, what gives you that drive, what gives you that adrenaline, when you can work through the day 18 hours a day and you're never tired because you're doing something that you love and enjoy, then don't ever let it go. Hold on to it. Hold on to it because it is so very precious. And see if you can make this purpose the compass that will help you navigate the world which is challenging but also has opportunities, a world which is uncertain, the world which is unpredictable. See if you can make this purpose the compass with which you navigate life, because the world does need people. The world does need leaders who are strong, purpose-led leaders with an unwavering moral compass. And that's what brings me to all of you, this graduating class of 2025. All of you stand here at a very pivotal moment in your lives, but also a pretty important moment in the history of this nation. Yeah. We have, for the first time, begun to dream and dream big. We aspire to be a nation which becomes a developed nation by 2047. Vikshit Bharat, the dream that we talk about today. Now, we may all like it, but it's not an easy dream. It's not an easy vision for us to realize. It requires us to grow consistently, deliver strong growth, and consistently not for 3, 4, 5 years, for the next 20 years. That's hard. But there are a few things that are working for us. Few things that each one of you would have heard of. Things like the demographic dividend that we talk about. The fact that we are a young nation, a median age of 28, 65% of our population being in our working age, that we are young when the rest of the world has already started aging, including China. And if estimates are to be believed, over the next 5 years, 20% of the world's working age population will be here. That's a remarkable tailwind that we've got. There's also the tailwind of all the effort that has been going on building infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, of course. But even more importantly, I think the work which has been done over the last few years to create what I think is probably the most remarkable public digital infrastructure which has been laid in will be the fruits of which we will see over a period of time. On the base of Aadhaar, the UPI, the ONDC, and many other platforms which are coming up, we are likely to see transformational outcomes because it is this that has enabled us to leapfrog. And dare I say that our public digital infrastructure is ahead of most countries in the world, if not all countries in the world. It is this that democratizes opportunity. It is this that gives access to everyone, a voice to everyone, a choice to everyone, and if leveraged well, offers the potential for us to get there. So these are some of the tailwinds that we've got. But let's also not be naive. Even with these tailwinds, getting to these outcomes is going to be hard. It's going to be hard because the world which we are living in is not easy. It's unpredictable. You've heard your dean, Professor Nagaraj, talk about how challenging the world will be. The world has been renewed, the political order, the world order has been upended over the last few weeks and months. Conventional wisdom has been thrown out. Technology, for all its promises, also brings up its challenges. And that's the world that we have to navigate. And for that, we are going to require a different type of leadership. A leadership, by the way, exceptional leadership at all levels of the organization, at all levels. Leadership that is committed to what I would call ethical decision-making. Leadership that seeks to and works towards common good and not just personal self-interest. Leadership and leaders who are not just competent, but also compassionate. Leaders who are not just driven, but are also principled. That's the sort of leadership that we will need. I hope many of you, if not all of you, will be such leaders for the India of tomorrow. I hope you see this as your opportunity. I hope you see this as your calling. I hope you rise to this occasion and remember the few things that you've learned in this last few years. The lessons that you've learned in this institute, remember those. Remember the transformative power, as I keep coming back to, the power of your mindset and a positive attitude that you bring to what you do. I hope you embrace the notion of wanting to be the best version of yourself and embrace the idea of consistent, continuous improvement. Your education doesn't end, it begins now as you step out into this real world. And I hope that you find your purpose, and when you find it, you hold on to it and make that the driving force of everything that you do. Above all else, I wish each one of you much success. I wish each one of you lots of happiness, lots of fulfillment in what you do. Go forth and make a difference. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Paranjpe, for those inspiring words and advice to our class of 2025. I now invite Dean Dr. Varun Nagaraj to lead the ceremonial hat throw and the closing of the convocation.
members of the Governing Council and faculty, I present before you the graduating class of 802 participants from SPJIMR. Members of the Governing Council and faculty, may we confer the qualifications on these 802 graduates. All right, thank you. By the authority vested in me, I confer upon you 802 convocating graduates this esteemed qualification. Go forth and in word and in deed, prove yourselves worthy of it. At this point, we will now have the hat throw. I declare the convocation closed. Thank you. Good night.
Some announcements, please. Your food coupons will be given to you near the food counter. That's one. And two announcements now regarding parking. Car number MH4 3BN2128. You are blocking the parking entry and exit points. So please move your vehicle. I'll repeat. Car number